There we go. We're back. Warrior mode with me, Kev Baker, and the main man, Bill Bean. I can't believe another week has gone by already, but you haven't had to wait a full week to hear Bill, as we're going to find out in just a moment, because he was on the world's biggest radio show. Yes, Coast to Coast AM. He graces their airwaves very frequently, and we're very lucky that he comes and hangs out on the Kev Baker Show. And of course, we've got this, our own little project as well. And I hope you're looking forward to tonight's show. We're going to be continuing taking a look at some of the real crimes that have definite connections into the world of evil. But before we go anywhere, Bill, Warrior Mode is upon us again, and you're fresh from coast to coast, brother. Congratulations on a brilliant show.
Thank you, brother. Amazing. Yeah, it's amazing how quickly the time is going by. And again, maybe we could look at it as the sand slipping through the hourglass. And so it is, we're at a critical time now, and it's very important that we all realize that, number one. And secondly, I pray that everyone will come back to God and establish their real and true and authentic relationship with Him. And boy, Kev, yeah, it's been quite a week, just absolutely amazing. But before we get started, let me say a quick prayer, and then we'll get into the events that have transpired here with me and what's taking place in our world as well. Father, I thank you and praise you for this blessed and appointed time, and for this forum that we have through Kev to be able to get this out to the masses. And I pray that you work through us as you always do to get the truth out to the people and to be a blessing to them. I pray that you'll speak through us to provide them with help and assistance in whatever they may be needing. And we give you endless praise and thanks forevermore. And I ask that you bless everyone out there and keep them covered and in your hedge of protection 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for life. Glory to you, Father, forevermore, in Jesus' name.
So tell me, Bill, how did it go on Coast to Coast then?
Went fantastic, even better than I expected. This was interesting, Kev, because this was something different. Usually when I go on Coast to Coast, it is with George Norrie. And George and I is a dear friend of mine, great guy. We always have a very good dialogue back and forth. And this time they wanted Cheryl Jones, their investigative reporter, to interview me. And she has quite a background. And as a matter of fact, we'll be having her on next week to discuss her life and her career and her background. And she has she's worked at CNN. She's worked in many newsrooms all across America. So she has quite a career. Did a great interview. She was really fantastic. And again, I had a very good dialogue with her as well. So what they did was they pre-recorded. And so they presented the interview on Coast to Coast with Cheryl and George having a dialogue about it, about me, about my story, my work now. And I just thought it was really interesting the way they went about it. It was different, again, because I'm used to being live. And so this time I was sitting back listening to them live, George and Cheryl, but going over my pre-recorded interview with her. And it was very interesting as they analyzed everything. And, Cheryl presented her thoughts and opinions. And George asked her some very interesting questions that he had never asked me before. And so it really was. And I've gotten so many messages. It's unbelievable. I get a lot of messages from people from all over the world every day.
I get a lot of messages for you.
It's amazing. But now I'm inundated. And, since the show, hundreds more messages have come through from people that really enjoyed that. So it was a total blessing.
And I'm literally having to pinch myself that we're getting anyone associated anywhere near Coast to Coast gracing our humble little podcast that we've put together here, Bill. And we're not even 20 episodes in yet. And you are setting the bar very, very high, sir. We're going to have to come up with some really big guests to
We're going
yeah,
to, no doubt
to
about it.
compliment Cheryl because you ran over some of her CV there. Um, I am absolutely beside myself excited. Going to be looking forward to next week's show because this woman here, somebody earlier on kind of described her as a younger version of Linda Moulton Howe. And I think that's
Yeah.
a really good way to kind of summarize it, but I would go further. I would dare to go further with Cheryl, and that's no offense to Linda. I've had her on the
No,
show,
I
and
agree
she's
with
a
you.
sweet, sweet woman, and I'd love to have her back on again. But I don't
Hmm.
know, there's just something very, very special about the way Cheryl goes about it. And as somebody who tries to podcast, who tries to interview, you know, I can definitely recognize somebody that knows what she's doing.
Oh yeah, I agree with
Big
you
time.
100%, Kev. Yeah, and I think that's going to be a fantastic interview with her next week. Very much looking forward to it, and then we'll see who else we'll have coming on in the coming weeks on the show. But just as you know, we will have some very interesting and high profile people coming on as well.
We certainly will, and I hope you all join us, not just for next week's show, but all the shows that come after that, because it's just going to keep getting better and better. The times are getting more and more chaotic all around us, folks. You just have to look at the news to see that there's something really, really weird, or at least the weirdness of it's picked up pace in 2020. And Bill,
Yeah.
we usually start off by talking about current events, and what's your latest take on everything that's playing out over on your side of the pond then?
Just mind-boggling, Kev, day by day. You know, if you think about this, I'd say probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, maybe 10, yes, things would happen on a momentous level, but they would not happen very often. You know, it was a big story would come along, and it would be a while before something big like that would eclipse that or get the focus off of that. But now the world we live in, the news is instant, and it seems like one thing is eclipsing the other in real time on a daily basis. I mean, this is just, I look back at how it was and where it is now, and I just can't wrap my head around it. And for those, again, who may say, oh, well, this is part of a natural progression of life, I beg to differ. I'm going to be 54 years old soon, and I don't recall at any point in my lifetime ever seeing anything like this, nothing close to it. And it certainly leads me to believe that, and I believe this firmly, that we truly are in the last days. And these events are unfolding right before our eyes. And some of these things that are happening, Kev, I just, again, just shake my head.
Yeah, for me as well. I mean, I've never witnessed a time like this. And for all of us, none of us have ever lived through a global pandemic in the first place.
Yeah.
None of us have had to go through this lockdown, no matter how severe it was where you were. Our lives really have been altered, you know, since all this came along. And I don't think it's just happenstance. I don't think it's all random. I'm like Bill. I think there's something more nefarious behind this. But I was even saying to
Yeah.
my good friend Scotty Lopez the other day, it doesn't make sense, a lot of the stuff that you see. One hand, you can't go to funerals, you can't gather in groups over 10, but on the other hand, you can go to protests. Some people have the masks on, some people have the masks off. You've got the
Yeah.
soccer over here, and the virus is that woke and it's that clever that it knows not to affect anyone on the pitch. But the substitutes, they all socially distance and wear masks. But when they go onto the playing field, they're allowed to bump into each other. You see, there's a lot of mixed kind of messaging here. And then you've got the social distancing, keeping everyone 2 meters apart. And when you look at that, seen a picture of it the other day, Bill, and it was a picture of a protest in Israel, I want to say. It doesn't matter. But it was a drone going over the top of one of these taking the knee type protests with social distancing going on as well. And it looked very akin to the kind of thing that you see in North Korea and China. And not only that, I'm thinking, who benefits from this really? Because
Yeah.
who's really benefiting? And the only thing I can think that benefits from causing confusion, having us separated in public as well, would be an AI. Because the AI would almost enjoy the adversarial confusion it causes by mixed messaging. And this whole 2 meters apart, that for me, as somebody who worked in CCTV, that is a dream come true. It used to be
Yeah.
a nightmare when you had people bustling about, and now the AI is able just to watch a full person, nothing intruding it, getting your walk, your gait, everything getting logged. And I don't know, Bill. I just wonder how much. We say that the scientists are dictating to governments right now, the Faucis, the Gates, things like that. How much are they getting from the sentient world simulation and the D-Wave and the AI, though? That's what I would like to know. Because if my work I done with Anthony Patch is right, and I do stand by that, and I do recognize that a lot of the technology has been gained by divination, magical means, then
Correct, you are.
it would tie in with what we've been saying for years, brother. That
Yeah.
this whole satanic Luciferian thing, whatever it is, it's going to be expressed through the technology,
Bingo.
right?
You're hitting the nail on the head. Everything you're saying, it's absolutely true. And furthermore, who's benefiting from this financially? The power elite. They're making money hand over fist and have been so ever since all this started. Now in America, I read a story the other day that I think the UK wants to cut off the flights from America to there because America it's raging again. All the numbers are up everywhere in places like Florida and Texas, Arizona, most of the country. Numbers that are greater now than at any time since this started. And so if this is true, par for the course. And the ones that are doing well and making out are the power elite. Now, you're exactly right in what you said about the AI and about the technology and about the black magic that's taking place as well, because this is all coming from one place, and that is from the devil. So it goes back, and I've said this many times, and it's worth repeating, that God, Yahweh, is allowing the devil to have this time, this short time, to have his way in the world, just like he did with his good and faithful servant Job. Well, here we are. We're all living a Job experience. So the devil is pulling out all the stops, and he has these underlings, and whether they are reptilians, like David Icke says, which I tend to agree, or something else, they're still part of the satanic kingdom, and they are the underlings of the devil and the overlords of the power elite on this earth, and they are taking directions from them. They have direct connection, in my opinion and belief, to these demonic forces that are the overlords, that are the puppet masters for these power elite, and then it trickles down, to the underlings of them and the masses. And this is why our world is in such chaos right now, because this is all part of a very clever and calculated plan to have order out of chaos. And that's exactly what's taking place right now.
Thought Trump was draining the swamp. What was happening there, Bill?
Well, I wanted to believe that. I really did in the beginning. I truly did. But then all it does, all you have to do is take a step back and say, wait a minute now, what's going on here? And I said on the show last week, I made a challenge to him for him to do his job, prove me wrong, prove me to be a liar. I would come on this show and say, well, President Trump proved me wrong. I apologize. I was wrong about him. I just absolutely, he made a liar out of me. I'd
Bill,
love to say that.
How about I offer you this? Maybe he heard your challenge and he thought, okay, then what I'll do is I'll go out and I'll defend a statue. Not just any statue. It's a very special statue, isn't it, Bill? Tell the audience about that.
And again, for the people out there that still worship and support him, look, I'm not trying to upset you. I'm not trying to offend anybody. I don't have any support for him or anybody else anymore. So my faith is totally invested in God, 100%. So I've learned a lesson. We can't trust man. But anyway, a very interesting thing has happened this week. Now, as all of you know, and even over where Kev is in the UK, they are pulling down these statues, all over the place. And one statue that was brought down was a statue of General Albert Pike. Now, for those of you who do not know who Albert Pike is or was, he was one of the most powerful Freemasons of all time. Very, very high up, and one of the top bananas ever. Very powerful, and Albert Pike was also quoted as saying that Lucifer is God. He is the light bearer. So this is Albert Pike. Now, for those, he wrote a book called, what's it called, Kev? Rules and Dogma?
Morals and Dogma.
Morals and Dogma.
Yeah.
And for those, again, who don't believe what I'm saying here, just research, punch in his name and punch in that quote, and you'll see it. I mean, he wrote it in his book. And so my point to this, and Kev opened the door for this to take place now for me to speak about this. Pike, the statue was brought down, and President Trump, right away. Now, this is the first time, to my knowledge, that he's done this with any of the statues, and many statues have been damaged or brought down. A couple of weeks ago, the statue of George Washington, they burned an American flag on it and damaged the statue. Well, this particular statue of Albert Pike was brought down, and right away, Trump said that he wants that restored and put back up. Now, that's the only statue that I have heard him say that about. And it just so happens that this is a very powerful satanic Freemason, he was. And so I find it very interesting that there's an urgency to restore that statue and put it back up.
Well, and my stepdad Frank's going to be listening right now, and he'll be sitting there shaking his head. But there's another thing that's going on in the world right now that really ties in with Freemasonry. And taking the knee. Taking the knee is actually part of the Masonic pledge that you can go and look at, Bill. There's pictures of it.
Yeah,
I'll pull it up online. So, when you're taking the knee, and I get it, people think they're taking the knee for one reason, but there's multiple layers to everything, folks. And we're looking at mass rituals that are going on around the planet right now. It might not look like that,
but it is.
But it is. It very much is, Bill. And, I haven't seen Trump speaking up for any of the other statues. I did have a little smile on my face when I seen this headline because, well, we should have known, right? And there's people out there that think that the Freemasons are behind everything. And I tell you what, there's some really powerful people in the world that are Freemasons. Now, does that mean they're all bad people? No. But you have to watch the ones that are in power, because then they're part of that old boys network. And that's even going to be relevant when we go into tonight's main topic, when we go into the real crime because of the person's connections into local government and things like that. But the statue, will it go back up, Bill? Who knows? Is it back up?
We'll see. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard any more whether it's back up or not, but very interesting. And right away when I saw that story, I thought, wow, I can't believe what I'm seeing. And this is just another thing that's in plain sight. And here's the way that I equate this, Kev, whether it's Freemasons or any of these Skull and Bones or any of these other types of organizations, that they work hand in hand. They really do. The Shriners, all these different types of organizations, and people go, you're crazy. These people, they donate to charity and all that. Yeah, I'm not saying that they don't. What I am saying is that these people work hand in hand, and they're on this pyramid. And you just look at it like a pyramid, and all these different organizations are on this pyramid. They all go hand in hand, and they're all part of this power elite, New World Order, Illuminati society that they, again, in my opinion, are taking direct orders from the devil and his minions, and this is why we have this world which is an order out of chaos, and that's just the way the devil wants it. That's just the way that he likes it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, somebody in the chat room, Cupcake, says Trump protected the saint statue also. That's awesome, because I hadn't seen that, and if he has, then
Yeah, I haven't seen that. Yeah,
fair dues.
if he did, good for him.
Awesome. But definitely the Albert Pike one stood out for me, that is for sure. So we've got a couple of talking points. You had COVID-19. What's your latest take on that, Bill? I mean, over here, we had a mass incident declared by the emergency services during the week because people in Britain went to the beach on one of the hottest days of the year. And then we had Liverpool winning their first Premier League title in 30 years. We love our soccer over here. And it was inevitable. People congregated at the stadium over 2 days. And of course, now we're starting to hear, well, these are going to be causing the second wave. I haven't seen the first wave going away yet, but what's your take on it?
And, well, I think, again, here in America, what can you believe anymore? I mean, if these numbers are true and these stories, who can you believe? What can you believe? This is why it's so important to trust in God and have a real and authentic relationship with Him. Therefore, you'll have spiritual discernment.
Do you think
Otherwise,
sorry, but do you think that's to cause even further confusion at this time? Yeah, because it's very public. It's very public that we're hearing that there's various different numbers. People are getting classed as COVID deaths. Now, the way I'm seeing it is, in this day and age, they can remove anything from the internet before it goes live. And it's almost as if they're quite happy to see that there's multiple different narratives, multiple theories. And at a time when a lot of people are fearful because of what's going on, what they've been told is going on anyway, that just adds to the mix. And it must be causing more and more stress, more fear. And for me, Bill, that ties into the chaos card. It's almost like they want it. Yeah.
And if you keep people low frequency and low vibration, you're going to be able to control them through fear. And that's exactly what's happening. Now, that said, all the numbers are off the charts here in the United States, in most states in the United States now, according to what they're reporting. And I can tell you this, more and more people are coming to me for prayer that they either have it or loved ones have it. I had a session scheduled for Friday with an elderly lady that was in a COVID unit, that she had it, and we had to cancel the session because they wouldn't bring her out of the unit to speak with me. So I'm getting more and more of those types of messages. Here in Maryland, there was an organizer of one of the events that they wanted to, Governor Hogan here in Maryland had Maryland on lockdown for, quite a while. Now they're starting the phase 1 and phase 2 of reopening. And one of those organizers who wanted everything opened up, he now has COVID. And so it's amazing that some of these people that think that this isn't real and they say, what a hoax this whole thing is, and they're getting it. So now their tune is changing because it's affecting them or someone that they love. And so make no mistake, this is a very real thing. What is it? I'm not quite sure. In my opinion, I think it's a bio weapon that was created and launched against the people. I don't think it's something that's naturally occurring. And whatever the case may be, it's very real, and people are getting sick. So for those who think that this is a hoax and there's nothing to it, I wish that were true, but unfortunately it is not.
And yeah, on that note, Anne, one of the people she knows through her work, she had contracted it. She ended up in the hospital in her 20s. The most horrendous thing she's ever had in her life. Felt like she was drowning. I believe it, Kev. So,
I've heard those stories just like you. I believe it.
Again, it's a mix of everything, Bill. There's fake stories out there. There's psyops running. But there is definitely something real at the heart of this that they're using. For multiple programs, we can see that. And then you do hear about people who genuinely get sick. Now, is it a souped-up seasonal flu? Well, it's from the same family. And from the reading I've done, it would certainly appear to me there's a wealth of evidence to support that it's a bioweapon. And it certainly didn't randomly mutate in a bat in a cave 1,000 kilometers from the wet market that it turned out
Sorry, I
didn't
don't
have
buy that
any
one.
of that in it. So yeah, over here, Bill, it's kind of weird because you've got, where I stand is take personal responsibility. And, you know, me personally, I'd be staying in and keeping away from people because I don't want to get that
Yeah.
nasty thing that Anne's friends got. And it's trying to find that balance, and it is hard to find that balance, but we've got to appreciate that this is all part of something far bigger. This is like a change of an age. That this is part of their introduction to the New World Order, the Great
I agree.
Reset. It's massive. It's on cosmic scales, and then it's down here on the macro that we're dealing with it. I don't think humans have lived through a time like this, Bill. I struggle to think when. You know, I really do struggle to compare what we're going through now to
Yeah.
a time in history, you know?
It's just, again, you can't wrap your head around it. And as you know, for the last 6 or more years, I've been constantly traveling, you know, everywhere, all over this country. I've shut it down since the COVID because I don't get sick, and I thank God and praise God for it. But that's not to say that I couldn't get it, and I pray that I never do. But if I ever, you know, carried something like that and gave that to my wife or people that are connected to us, I'd never forgive myself. So I've, out of consideration, have had to shut this down and really err on the side of caution. And so I'm doing all of my sessions, all of these spiritual deliverances, and even exorcisms via Skype now. And it's just as effective. It's the next best thing to being there. And so I'm overwhelmed with cases and clients coming to me more and more by the day who need spiritual help. And this very much ties into everything that's taking place now. So even though I'm not traveling, I'm still absolutely tremendously busy on a daily basis with people from all over the world.
Well, I was on a hospital appointment the other day with a difference because now you do it right here from home via webcam. So we're starting to see how the new kind of systems are going to be working long after COVID goes away, folks, because the big changes are coming. It's not me saying that to be doom and gloom. We've played the clips from the World Economic Forum. They're telling us, Prince Charles telling you what's coming. If he's signaling something coming, it always serves well to pay attention to a level of elite speaking, you know, when he's talking. So
in plain sight, they're showing you and they're telling you, and so now places like Texas, Texas is probably the epicenter right now, the hottest spot in the United States for this COVID, just through the roof. And where they had opened everything, they were one of the first states to open back up. Now they're starting to close everything back down.
And I would imagine that Trump, no matter what happens, the media, the Democrats, they're all going to blame him. He's going to blame whoever. That'll add to the chaos. There'll be more things to come along the way. I wasn't sure if I'd throw this in tonight, but I think I should. Maybe people haven't seen this, but in the UK today, I got an alert on my phone, and it was from Sky News. And the news was that the government is urging schools, hospitals, and businesses to prepare and run exercises to simulate a terror attack. So
not good.
The fact that they put that out in public, you know, they want people to see that. Again, it's to add to the fear factor, that ambiguity. Or what do the government know that we don't, that they're making them do that? It is what it is, folks. And try not to get too invested in any one kind of theory or hypothesis about anything going on right now. I try to look at things from all angles, and then there's no disappointment when some of them turn out to be gumph. And you end up not getting dragged into these silly internet kind of arguments that happen nowadays because somebody's theory is different than yours. And it happens all the time. And that's why I try to anyway, Bill. Look at all angles, not get too invested in any one of them. I can speak to people who think it's all fake. I can speak to people who think it's all the other way, and I can walk out the other end quite happy because it's the information we've got to keep our eyes on. And our own personal theories, well, That's just the ego starting to play there, you know.
And for me, my focus is in one direction, and that is on God. And so I take my direction from Him. Am I perfect? No. Never claim to be, but I try to do the best that I can do, be the best that I can be each and every day of my life, and that starts with God and it ends with God. So I fully trust in Him. He's the only one that I would bow down to. I'll tell you that right now. And when we think about this take a knee stuff, taking a knee is submitting. So what are you submitting before? So you're submitting that these atrocities that are taking place, that you're submitting before what? Is someone that's going to give solution? Who are you submitting to? You're not submitting before to God. And again, that's the only one that I'm getting on my knees to and for. And I love everybody and have nothing against anybody, but I'm not submitting to anyone or anything unless His name is Yahweh Elohim and His Son Yahshua Jesus the Christ. Otherwise, no thanks. I will love people and do anything and everything that I can for people, but I thank God that I was born a leader and not a follower. So when the crowd goes one way, I'm going the other way.
Absolutely, brother, absolutely. So let me ask you, how is the 7th book going? Because I know you gave that one away. It's still for free, is that right?
Correct, yeah, and it's going great. It's amazing that so many people are requesting it. And I have the link on BillJBean.com, so you'll see it in the great book cover. Thank you, Kev Baker, for designing a beautiful and perfect book cover for it. And I'm just extremely happy that people are loving the book. And it's something that God really put on my spirit to do. And I couldn't put a price tag on that because this was something that obviously, if God put it on my spirit in that way, I had to freely give so people would freely receive some valuable information and empowerment and knowledge and guidance. And so far, the reviews that I've gotten back from the people that have read it are all wonderfully positive, and I couldn't be happier. Praise God. So that's what it's all about. God worked through me to put something down, to write this that would be a blessing to others. And so it's all win-win. So I'm extremely happy about it.
Quite right, Bill. And just to give people an idea, here's one of the reviews. It says, I absolutely love the book. Already started implementing it into my life. You are correct. Knowledge is so very important. Thank you for everything you do. God bless. And that's from somebody called Donnie. So, yeah, certainly. And I enjoyed doing the cover for that one. I did, Bill. Looks very good.
It's perfect.
Yes.
And I really appreciate it, brother. It fit it perfect. So you have a part in that as well. So God worked through you, designed something just perfect for it. And so, again, it's all win-win. And then it won't be too long from now that I'm going to begin work. So I hope you'll begin writing your part for the book as well. Stranger Than Fiction Part 2, I'm going to start working on. And we're going to have a lot of different voices in the book again from different experiencers. And they'll share what strange things have happened in their lives. So the first book, I'm still getting, and it's odd, Kev, because I seem to be getting more sales now on that book than I did initially. So it's interesting. There's kind of a resurgence, and maybe it's because we're talking about it more on the show. I don't know.
Well,
but,
I know we've got now a mutual friend, and I can't thank you enough for bringing me into contact with Steve Hodgson. And he's been telling me, Bill, whoa, we talk about like things getting more dark. It is crazy, he says, when he's going out there and investigating now.
Yeah.
Bad, dude, very bad.
We're gonna get he and Jen to contribute a chapter in this new book, Stranger Than Fiction 2. They're wonderful and dear people, love them dearly. And interestingly enough, Steve is creating a brand new website for me as we speak, and I'm really I'm thankful to him for that. I truly appreciate it, and I will be proud to present it. So when he's done, and if Steve, if you're watching, take your time, no pressure, take your time, get it done when you get it done. And then maybe what we'll do is we'll unveil it here on the show, and whether that is next week or the week after, whenever he's got it completed, we'll launch that new website, right here on the show.
And yeah, Steve is a great guy. I've seen some of his work he does for other websites, so I'm excited to see what yours is going to look like, Bill. And Connie, she's asking, yay, Kev Baker show writing. I've already wrote a chapter for Bill's first Stranger Than Fiction book. That was all about CERN. I don't know what I'm going to do this time. Probably Crowley and the real Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah.
That's probably in my mind. Yep. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the second book for sure. And I can't wait to get Steve and Jen on with us as well, because they're great people. Honestly, just really great people.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
They truly are. They're genuinely good people. And it was you, Kev, that really kind of planted that seed as far as the website thing, because I've been having some problems lately with, and it doesn't surprise me, suddenly, and I can't get any answers on this, my URL, billbean.net, is gone. My URL, billbeanministries.com, is gone. They're just suddenly gone, and I can't get any answers as to why this has happened. And then the website that Bill Bean Ministries was on, that's now unsecure. So I don't know if somebody's breached the site, and I can't get any communication from anybody on that end to tell me what's going on. So I'm just going to wash my hands of all of it, and Steve's designing this new website for me, and we'll start fresh and new.
Yeah, I think Steve is the way to go, definitely the way forward. So folks, we're not going anywhere, because we've just been kind of warming up and getting ready for taking a look into yet another case that I think has all the fingerprints of pure evil written all over it. And on the Kev Baker show, from time to time, we do stories about clowns. But when it comes to clowns, there is only one man I think that we should really be talking about. One of the most evil clowns that has ever walked this earth, if you ask me. It's not a clown from a movie. It's not Pennywise. No, it's a guy called John Wayne Gayce. Bill, I watched a little documentary on him again today. He's one of the characters that I've seen several documentaries on, but I know you research these people, multiple different kind of famous cases, individuals. We've already gone over some of them with the Manson family, and we had the Son of Sam as well.
Yeah.
But Gacy, for you, talk to me a bit about him. Let's start with his childhood, because wow, that was a bit of a weird upbringing, shall we say?
The guy, John Wayne Gayce, he was born in Chicago, Illinois, March 17th, 1942, and he's the second child and only son of John Stanley Gacy. And John Stanley Gacy died December 25th, 1969. And his mom, Marion Elaine Robinson, and she died on December 6, 1989. His father was an auto repair machinist and World War I veteran, and his mother was a homemaker. And Gacy was of Polish and Danish ancestry. And his paternal grandparents spelled the family name as Gatza, Gatza, and had immigrated to the United States from Poland. So it says, as a child, Gacy was overweight, not athletic. He was close to his two sisters and mothers, but endured a difficult relationship with his father, who was an alcoholic, an abusive alcoholic, who used to abuse him and the wife and his wife and other children as well, Gacy's siblings. And Gacy never received his father's approval in anything, and he recollected that no matter what he did, were achieved. He was never good enough in his father's eyes, and his father regularly belittled him, calling him dumb and stupid and comparing him unfavorably with his sisters. Despite this, Gacy was always denied ever hating his father. He's always denied that, but yet still had these strong feelings of rejection.
But what I took from looking into him was, the father, I think he was desperate for a typical son, a man's man, and
yes.
From what I believe, the father was quite sporty, and when it came to that side of things, that isn't what young Johnny would like to get into at all. In fact, he was far more at home, planting flowers, painting, and doing things that the dad would...
Hanging out with the girls,
Yeah, that the dad just totally rejected him in many ways. And some of the beatings that he seemingly took, Bill, absolutely horrendous. And then it was really ominous because there was an interview with him, and he said he just remembers one beating in particular where he stopped crying and he just kind of took it, and he had no emotion left in him. And I thought to myself, wow. And I don't know if that formed multiple personalities in him at an early age or not, but it certainly didn't set him up well in life, did it?
No, and again, and I'm certainly not going to make any excuses for this, in my opinion, low life, and I'm trying to be as kind as I can with my words. However, when people do suffer high levels of trauma, it absolutely does open doorways for demons to come in. So not making any excuses for him at all, because God gave us all free will, so we're free to make our choices.
Exactly.
However, when a bad choice does come about, those demons are there to aid and abet in that and fuel that and intensify that. So I think that, and one of the reasons that we're doing this profile and analysis of some of these serial killers is to show a clear pattern that these people have had evil infiltrate into their lives in some way, shape, or form, which is a guiding force. So instead of God being the guiding force in these people's lives, it is the devil who has come in and come through with his demons that are guiding these people to destruction and to cause destruction.
Absolutely. And this is because over the time we've been working and all the guests I've spoke to, it's almost one of the common denominators. Not all of the time, but this abuse as a child.
Yeah.
And I'm like you. I'm not giving this character any get out of jail card because, like you said, you've got free will, and not all victims turn out John Wayne Gayce. So,
correct.
Yeah, it's a lot more than just blaming a childhood. Let's put it that way. And
we've all been down the long and hard roads in life, and we all also are, through and by free will, capable of making good decisions. I don't care how much you've suffered in life.
And listening to his story, I suppose if John Wayne Gayce had been born nowadays, Bill, he probably would have been identified as having some kind of gender confusion or gender issues, perhaps. And again, that's not me making excuses for him in any way. I'm just pointing out that that's the kind of troubled childhood he had when he was growing up. Pretty horrendous by all accounts. And I suppose it set him on the road to what he eventually became,
Yeah, and again, back to one of the other beatings, and I don't know if this may have been the same beating. I don't know. This is saying one of Gacy's earliest childhood memories was of being beaten with a leather belt at the age of 4 for accidentally disarranging car engine parts that his father had assembled. On another occasion, he was struck across the head with a broomstick and rendered unconscious. When he was 6 years old, Gacy stole a toy truck from a neighborhood store. His mother made him walk back to the store, return the toy, and apologize to the owners. His mother informed the father, who beat Gacy with a belt as punishment. Now, that happened a lot back in my time, too, believe me. After this incident, Gacy's mother attempted to shield her son from his father's verbal and physical abuse, Yet this only succeeded in Gacy earning accusations that he was a sissy and a mama's boy who would probably grow up to be homosexual. And so it's just based on what I'm reading here and what I've put together. It sounds like the father was certainly, let's just say, not very favorable to him, and probably due to his alcohol abuse, was a raging alcoholic who was very unloving and uncaring. And that's unfortunate for Gacy or any child that would have to suffer and endure through things similar to that.
I think when you've got an alcoholic, it's just my speculation, my hypothesis, but spirits, drink, we talk about it often, you almost become a different character. So you've got a potential for some kind of attachment there from demonic forces with the father alone. And
it's
then,
true.
yeah, and then you've got the child. So it's almost the template for things to go wrong here, for demons to come in, Bill, you know?
No question, because again, when people are under the influence of alcohol and or a drug, the frequency and vibration is lowered. So again, all life operates on frequency and vibration. And if we're on high frequency, high vibration, life is good, life is positive, we're moving forward. But if we're on low, life is very difficult, to say the least, always a challenge, and it's as if the person has a black cloud over their head and they can never seem to move forward. They're stuck, or furthermore, they're being pulled backward, and the devil is behind all of this. And so this is why it's so important. I don't have anything against anybody that takes a drink or wants to go and be social or have dinner and have a few drinks at dinner or whatever. I don't have anything against anyone like that. Where the problem is when people say, I'm going out to party and I'm going to get so messed up, you know, and that's a problem. Because now, through that poisoning, and make no mistake, that's what it is. So that's when a person gets inebriated, drunk, it's because they're poisoned. Their system is now poisoned by this alcohol, and it's creating this negative adverse effect that is now rendering the person at times incapable of doing anything, and including remembering the events that are taking place while they are in this condition and stupor. And so when that happens, it's as if there's a form of possession that takes place, per se, that these entities come in and they take over, and now they're driving the body. And how many times have you heard in your lifetime, Kev, and I've heard it many in my lifetime, from people that said, oh, wow, I did that, I said that, oh, I was so messed up, I don't remember anything. And how many times have you heard that? You know,
that's pretty much, that's why I had to stop, Bill. I had to pretty much knock it on the head, because it was getting to the point where I'd go out, I'd have a great night, wake up the next day, and then I'd find out what had happened. And I had no recollection of anything. And yet people were saying, but Kev, you were all right. You weren't like drunk or anything. You were life and soul the party. Thinking, that can't be. That's not right. It just isn't right. Yeah. And now
it's dangerous.
Hindsight, a wonderful thing, the old hindsight, right? But I tell you, it does. It doesn't change you into a different person. It allows something to take over your person. That's what I think is happening there. And
I agree.
Back to Gacy, I think in school as well, I think he was diagnosed with some heart condition as well, Bill, which was another kind of black mark against his name for his father, because that meant there was going to be no sporting career, he wouldn't be the macho man, and again, you little sissy boy, probably led to beatings, you know?
Furthermore, Kev, he may have developed the heart condition from the level of trauma that he sustained from these beatings, from being so afraid. You know, it's possible. You know, it says here in 1949, Gacy's father was informed that his son and another boy had been caught sexually fondling a young girl. Gacy's father whipped him with a razor strap as punishment. That same year, Gacy was molested by a family friend, a contractor who would take Gacy for rides in his truck and then fondle him. Gacy never told his father about these incidents, afraid that his father would blame him. So, and like you said, with the heart condition, he was ordered to avoid all sports at school. During his time in the fourth grade, Gacy began to experience blackouts. He was occasionally hospitalized because of these seizures. And also in 1957, he had a burst appendix, which can be fatal. Gacy later estimated that between the ages of 14 and 18, he had spent almost a year in the hospital for these different episodes, and attributed the decline of his grades to his missing school. His father suspected the episodes were an effort to gain sympathy and attention, and openly accused his son of faking these conditions. And the mother had a different, she took up for him, and they, but it even says here, though, that the mother and sisters and a few close friends, they never doubted his illnesses. They were staunch supporters of his. Gacy's medical condition was never conclusively diagnosed. Now, I find that interesting. But there is a clear pattern that perhaps, based on what we're reading here, that the father was just very unhappy that his son was not who he wanted him to be. Like you said, Kev, a man's man, or a rugged boy out there fighting and playing sports and getting dirty and all that kind of stuff. So maybe that produced hostility and resentment towards his son because, the son was not that way. And furthermore, based on some of the things that I've studied here, just like in the other cases that we've covered, perhaps Gacy was just born a bad seed in the first place because, we see a pattern also with some of these individuals, most of them, that they are getting into trouble at very young ages. Same thing with him and Manson and all these other people. It is a pattern. So does this fit the narrative that this individual was born a bad seed? I can't say for sure, but we do see some evidence here that would suggest that he was getting into trouble at a very young age.
And when he leaves school, I don't know where your story goes there, but from early on, he had ambitions to get into politics and things like that. Now, for me, this sounds weird, but anyone who's eager to get into politics from a young age, they must have some kind of psychopathic streak about them. And if they don't have it about them, then I'm sorry, A, they're not going to make it, or B, they will make it because they'll develop a psychopathic streak. Because anyone who wants to go in there, and I heard it was because he loved the idea of controlling people. That's what really appealed to him about politics, So that power, that craving power,
And see, Kev, again, when we start to really break down things and analyze things, and you say, well, and you look at this guy's life and the information that's been presented, we see patterns here that this guy, in my opinion, and was he born this way? I don't know. I would have to, in my best guess, say that most likely he was born this bad seed. If that's the case, then he was going to be wicked no matter what. Even if his father treated him like gold, he was still going to be wicked because he was born that bad seed. And again, what does bad seed mean? Bad seed means of the satanic seed line, that there are two seed lines on this planet, and there always has been. And so the term bad seed comes from that this is a person that is born inherently wicked, without any emotions, without any type of compassion or any propensity to do good and right. So that is what a bad seed is.
It almost makes me wonder about, we talk about 23andMe, Ancestry.com, and all these places that want your genetic code. And I've done shows with Joe, and we spoke about maybe they're looking for lack of a better term, the Nephilim gene. Yeah. And when you talk about that as well, though, it could literally be, something in there that identifies part of your bloodline as being something of like Bill's talking, like Bill's talking about here,
And I know to some of you it may sound like crazy talk, but I assure you, if you do some research into it, it's not so crazy after all. And pardon the pun, but the truth is stranger than fiction at times. And all you have to do is dig. So Jesus said, "Seek and you'll find." And when you're seeking, it's going to require some digging at times to really get to the core of things and the heart of the matter and the truth.
You know, it shouldn't connect, but it does again. One of the recent shows we done on the ancient times and down under, the Aboriginal people.
Yeah.
Very, very conscious about who has babies with who. Because of the very particular about the genetics, Bill. Oh, that really came across in the conversation where there's some people that just shouldn't be with other people because of genetics.
And look at what you said.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, you know, even way, way back in the day, these people knew something. No good.
But remember what you also said in that was that they were very afraid of mixing in with the serpent people that were underground.
Yep, the crocodile man. See, everything connects, and you do have to look back. Because if you don't look back, you're pretty much doomed for failure in the first place.
Correct. So we must know where we've been in order to know where we're going or where we're heading. So this is why it's so important for people to do historical research into things. Knowledge is power. I've said it over and over and over again, and it's absolutely true. So we should always be seeking and thirsting for knowledge. And you don't have to agree with anything that Kevin and I are saying or presenting here, but I urge you to do the research on your own and for yourself. And so this is where even through the ages throughout Christianity, when in the Catholic Church, when really all this began, the priest was seen as the extension of God. So he would, when they had the services, he would read the Bible. He didn't want any of the congregation reading the Bible because they wanted the congregation to look at that priest as the extension of God, and therefore they would revere him and take his word for everything. So whatever he taught and whatever he would say, they would be in agreement with because there was no independent thought promoted there. Now, it's good to respect authority. Absolutely. I'm with that 1,000,000%. However, God gave us free will and he gave us a mind to think. So we cannot let someone do the work for us. So it becomes dangerous when we submit before someone and say, oh, well, they got it all, they know it all, they've got it, everything, so they'll tell me anything and I believe it, and that's it because I'm smart because they're smart. That's not entirely true. And I've said many times on this show and other shows, you don't have to believe a word that I say. But I urge you to do the research for yourself. I wouldn't want you hanging on my every word and believing everything and following along blindly. Now, I want you to open your eyes and do your own research so it can be verified to you, and you'll have that confirmation and saying, wow, okay, what he's saying is true because I have now researched this and I see it for myself and I understand what he's saying or Kevin Baker's saying because I've researched it for myself. So I always encourage people to do the independent research. That way they know for sure.
Absolutely. Fact check me all the time, and because I'm not perfect, I'm learning too. And that's why I kind of go to the motto, we provide, you decide. Because it shouldn't stop at me and Bill telling you something or anyone telling you something on a podcast. That should be your impetus to go and search some of the terms that you've heard and then determine for yourself if somebody has been accurate in their description of it. And remember, everyone's got their own way of viewing the same information. So it's going to come in different flavors, different forms, but you yourself have to go and read it because your truth is what matters the most in all of this. And discernment, it's key. You really have to think on it, take it to your gut, take it to your heart. I know that sounds weird, thinking with your heart, but you do have neurons in your heart. That's a medical fact. And once you can tune that discernment, it becomes kind of really key because you start to see and you start to feel what's right, Bill, and you start to feel and sense what's really wrong and dark, you know?
That comes from God, and that comes from holy spiritual discernment. And the only way that you can have that level of discernment is to have a real and authentic relationship with God, truly making him and keeping him first. If you do that, he will lead you in all the right places. Your life won't become perfect, but I'll guarantee it'll become much more blessed than it was ever cursed.
Definitely right, brother. So let's get back to Gacy, right? Because he's had this incident where he didn't tell his dad, and that happened. But he himself then, if I'm not mistaken, he went on to get married to somebody very influential in the Chicago area, and that was his kind of doorway into politics. Isn't that right, Bill?
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. So he hooks up with this lady, and then
Did I get it right? Did I take
no, you're right.
See,
you're right.
you see, dude. What can I say? It's that whole synchronicity. We're on it, man.
It's amazing because you often take the words out of my mouth. So it's amazing. It's right there. Praise God. But this, he does this courtship with this woman named Marilyn, and he, I think was it Marilyn Myers, Kev? Yeah.
Yeah, that's her name. Yeah.
And so they, now he's gonna try and hook up with her, and I guess it's. Maybe he's thinking that it's his doorway in to get to where he wants to go. And so it says during his courtship with Marilyn, Gacy joined a local JC's and became a tireless worker for the organization, being named key man of the organization in April of 1964. That same year, Gacy had his second homosexual experience. According to Gacy, he acquiesced that this incident took place after one of his colleagues in the Springfield JCs piled him with drinks. Okay, so the guy gets him drunk, invites him to spend the evening on his sofa, and then, he and the colleague engage in homosexual sex while he's under the influence. So again, we see a pattern, and this probably goes back to his childhood as well, with his certain mannerisms, and then being molested by that individual.
I think that might have been. I think he might even have shared. I don't know if that was the same friend. I think it was though. He, for the first time, he admitted to somebody that when he was younger, he used to like putting on the lipstick and his mother's clothing and stuff like that.
It's just bizarre. I mean, I don't know what to say, Kev, other than when these things are taking place. And look, I don't have anything against anybody, but I'm going to freely speak here that I think people who know me realize, and I love everybody. I've helped people from all backgrounds and will continue to do so, but I don't support homosexuality. And that's just all there is to it. Doesn't mean that I hate homosexuals or wouldn't help them, because that's not true. But I don't support it. It is, in my opinion, it just doesn't fit with my belief system. So when we see these types of patterns taking place, especially after, he was molested in childhood like that, perhaps it further opened the doorway for the demonic to come into his life. And it just seemed like a downward spiral from there, because as you read on through everything, he was an individual that, I guess, led a double life in a sense. Of course he did. He tried to present himself as this upstanding individual that was very community oriented and had aspirations for political office. Yet the flip side, he was this evil monster that the devil and his minions worked through to commit many, many wicked and heinous acts.
Absolutely, Bill, absolutely. Now, I'm not sure if it was during this time here with his first wife that he started to actually don the clown costume, or whether that came after his time in prison.
Well, it says they were married in 64. After a 6-month courtship, Gacy and Myers married in 1964. Her mother, or her dad, actually had purchased 3 Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurants in Waterloo, Iowa. And then I think here, let's see, Gacy, I think they're saying that he had an offer here.
Yeah, because I think he worked in a shoe shop in
Yes.
Springfield, and then he took on the KFC.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he had this lucrative offer, which was $15,000 a year, which was a good amount of money back then. And so he completed the managerial course, and then he and his wife relocate to Waterloo, Iowa. And it's saying here he opened a club. Did you read that as well, Kev? That he'd opened a club in his basement where the employees could drink alcohol and play pool?
Well, the one the interview I seen, the documentary, it was in his lounge. He basically had worked out the best way to make sure you had all of these influential people around you. And it started off with having a bar, and then it slowly progressed to not asking, but telling his wife they were going to be having swinger parties. I think we all know what that is without getting too graphic. And then it didn't stop at that, and it went on further, and you had orgies taking place at this premises. Now, we have to kind of hold on right here, because this is key, for me anyway, and I don't know if you maybe picked up on this, Bill, but got to take a little ride to Speculation Island for a moment, right? Because here you have a guy in and around Chicago politicians, and we have got sex parties happening at the house, and this is starting to sound very much like one of these almost honey trap situations. He knows a lot of secrets about a lot of powerful people, shall we say. And it actually led to him being voted something like it was the Chicago Man of the Year, or it was some ludicrous award he got from some of the higher ups in the kind of Illinois area, you know.
Just amazing, brother. It's amazing, you know. And again, corroborating what you're saying here, you know, how about the swinging, you know, the wife swapping, prostitution, pornography, drug use. You know, he was deeply involved in these activities and was regularly having sex with local prostitutes as well.
See, this is where I wonder, because, you know, when you've got a situation like that, we were talking about the Masons earlier on, and it's a similar thing here, because you've got information on each other, so there's almost like a mutual respect amongst anyone that are going to these parties, and then you see him in and around the politicians and things, and I think eventually, it was during this period, correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, but he came into contact with one of the local senators, one of the friends of his wife, his son, his son, a 15-year-old boy, and well, he abused him, took him home, gave him $50, threatened him that he knew the mob, don't talk. I think eventually he did speak out, and that's what led to Gacy going into jail for 10 years, right?
Yes. And isn't it amazing, again, that we see this pattern, this downward spiral, that, you know, the individual, he seems to, on one hand, be accomplishing what he's setting out to do by marrying this woman who is connected to influential people and her family as well. And so having that opening to be connected with these people also. And then on the other hand, just again, in this downward spiral to where he, the dark dominant side is now just committing one wicked and heinous act after another.
Well, he's in jail, right? And I mean, he's a master manipulator. There's actually a TV interview where he was serving in jail. He ended up the chef because he'd done the KFC, so he knew how to cook. And like I say, he just knows he knows how to get into the hearts of his fellow inmates' food.
Yes.
And also the governor, the prison guards as well. And out of a 10-year sentence, Correct me if I'm wrong, but did he not serve something like 16 months?
Yeah.
Now,
And
hang on,
again, you
Bill,
have
hang
to
on, wait
say,
a
how
minute.
can that
Yeah,
be?
how can that be? Over in the UK, that's typical. Over here, our prison system's a joke. It's like you get 3 years, you're out in 9 months. I don't get it. Why not just give somebody 9 months? But
Right.
in America, I mean, you're usually the land of everything's big, bigger, bigger. Sentences for hundreds of years. But usually people have to serve every single day of a sentence, right? Usually. And he
Not
walks free.
anymore.
Exactly. He walks free after 16 months.
And again, this comes as a result of having connections and powerful connections. So when you have those types of connections, then things can be reduced and things can be erased.
Absolutely, Bill. So he gets out of prison. You take it from there, brother. I'm stealing all of your story tonight. I've got
No, we got a good weave going here.
yeah.
This is good. I prefer it this way because you're involved like me to where we're giving information and we're going back and forth. So I like it better that way.
Yeah, see,
Heck,
I
to be
told you
honest
last week, Son of Sam, that was a new one to me. But Gacy, you see, I've got a fear of clowns, so you got to know your enemy.
I don't like clowns
No,
either. I'm not afraid of them, but I don't like them.
and didn't he call himself the most ridiculous clown name in the world, Pog?
Yeah. Now think about that. To me, again, without reading too much into it, right on the surface, are you referring to yourself as a pig? I mean, so you're saying pog, is that a derivative from pig, or is that it just sounds like just not a good thing to be referring to yourself, or a good nickname to have, or whatever, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he remarries, doesn't he? And he kind of he opens up to her kind of by telling her that he's bisexual.
Yeah.
I think she had 2 children, I believe. And this was the weirdest thing, Bill. In this documentary I watched today, you couldn't make this up. Talk about dark irony. Maybe I laugh at the wrong things, but the documenter, he actually said, when talking about the second marriage, Gacy had a way with children.
Yeah.
I feel like saying, well, that's one way of putting it,
Where do you go from there when somebody says, and again, that is such an ignorant thing to say. It's mind-boggling. How do you even? So to me, when somebody's saying something like that, obviously they're disconnected from what their story is, because how in the world, in good conscience, could you say something like that?
Exactly. I mean, that's the kind of thing I would say for a sick joke, because sometimes I'm the master of sick jokes, but to put it into a serious documentary, it just didn't fit. Even me, I had to go, whoa, that's one way of putting it.
And it just goes on and on and on here, Kev. I mean, one arrest after the other. There's another one. February 12, 1971, Gacy was charged with sexually assaulting a teenage boy who claimed that Gacy had lured him into his car at Chicago's Greyhound bus terminal and driven him to his home, where he had attempted to force the boy to have sex. The complaint was dismissed when the boy failed to appear in court. The Iowa Board of Parole did not learn of this incident, which would have violated his conditions of parole. And
hang
8 months later.
Stop again there. I mean, folks, listen to this. You're out on parole. Who do you know that would be out on parole? They commit a crime and they don't find out. They don't inform people.
Charles Manson all over again, right? I mean, this is we saw this over and over in the Manson case and other cases as well, and it just makes you wonder. And back to the Manson thing, I'm thoroughly convinced that he was a CIA subject, and perhaps Gacy was as well. Now, that would be going out on a limb. I can't prove that, but it is very strange that people like this and committing this level of crime and these wicked and heinous acts, just horrific, and yet there is no recourse for this.
I kind of got now, not on anywhere near the same level, but I get the kind of whiff of a very, very low minor Epstein-type character.
Yeah.
And hypothetically, you could get off when you're on parole if maybe one of the sergeants or somebody in one of the police stations or one of the bits of the chain where that information is to go, say you've been to a sex party with them.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, that information soon goes missing then, right? And that's how you don't get picked up when you're on parole.
And furthermore, think about it. That's how these Illuminati elites operate anyway. And whether that is through the Masonic Order or the Skull and Bones or any of the other spokes on that big wheel of the Illuminati, they have these types of parties and gatherings and rituals and orgies, and they are documenting it. So if somebody gets out of line, they can, if somebody decides that they want to spill the beans and talk, well, they're either going to kill you or they can present evidence showing you right there at the scene of whatever crime was taking place. So therefore, you won't be so apt to talk and speak ill of those organizations.
And that's how the world works, folks. When they're coming up through the universities, when they're looking like they're going to go on to do anything, they'll start to get the invites to the parties, and then eventually something will happen at a party and boom, that's you. You're theirs. And that's it. And that's how it works. And that's why,
Game over.
You don't need a full police department to be rotten to the core. You just need one person that's compromised. And that's who they go to. You don't need a full prison. You don't have to have all the guards and all the governors and everything else on the payroll. You just need to have one or two, because that's the best way to keep things quiet as well. And that's the way the world works, unfortunately.
It sure is. Yep. Unfortunately, I mean, that's the way it works for sure. And this is how a person like this can continue to just do one wicked, horrible thing after another for so long.
Take us to where he starts to embrace being the clown then.
Okay, so through his membership in a local moose club, Gacy became aware of a Jolly Joker Clown Club, whose members regularly performed at fundraising events and parades, in addition to voluntarily entertaining hospitalized children. In late 1975, Gacy joined the Jolly Jokers and created his own performance characters, Pogo the Clown and Patches the Clown. He performed as Pogo at numerous local parties, political functions, charitable events, and children's hospitals. Patches was used at the grand opening of stores of his PDM clients. Gacy designed his own clowning costumes and taught himself how to apply clown makeup. For these reasons, Gacy was known as the Killer Clown. And so Gacy was also known to occasionally remain in his clowning garb after performance. On several occasions, he is known to have arrived dressed in his clowning garb, and he would do this also at a favorite drinking spot called the Good Luck Lounge, with the explanation that he had performed at a charitable event and was stopping for a social drink before heading home. Gacy later stated that acting as a clown allowed him to regress into childhood. Okay. Just, again, shaking my head that perhaps...
Utterly terrifying. Terrifying.
Yeah. And perhaps that this individual, maybe that was his trigger, that if he put on the clown costume, that all of a sudden it would activate this evil side that was capable of doing anything.
And Bill, when I mentioned the second wife there, what I forgot to mention was, and what he forgot to mention to his second wife was, that she was moving into a house where he had just put somebody under the floorboards into the basement. And it wouldn't be the last that ended up in the basement, right?
No.
And it's not laughing. I'm not laughing funny.
No,
it's one of those almost nervous, just too absurd, and it brings out a laugh,
That's how we're doing out of absurdity and just being exasperated by, just this pattern of, you just look at it, and even as I read it, I just have to shake my head. It's just amazing that something like this went on for so long. And it's sad.
That's what gets me, Bill. The fact it went on for so long.
Yeah. Kev, if I were the guy in power, and I hate to say this because, again, I love all people, but we have to have law and order because of the order of God. There's an order of all things. And so, as part of that order, we should certainly do our best to be law-abiding citizens and to be good citizens to one another. Now, that said, if I were the guy, that God came and said, William, you're the guy, you're the president, you're this or whatever, I'm sorry to say that I would implement the most harsh punishments that you could imagine for people like this, because in order to have a civilized society that does follow the rule of law, and if you can have or achieve the goal of having law-abiding citizens and communities that you could bring back to be really bright spots and jewels of an area where people are good and decent and kind and respectful, and they strive to help one another. The only way that you can do that is by having these, unfortunately, these very harsh punishments, because it's not working. The system doesn't work now, and it hasn't worked for a long time. America's the most incarcerated country ×4 on the earth. Doesn't work. So
and of course, it's, as well, on top of that, Bill, you've got the whole kind of prison industrial complex. You've got the private prisons that are built, and then they sign deals where they have to be, but they're guaranteed 99% like attendance. So you've got the guarantee that the prisoners are going in there, and then you see people getting done for all the wrong things, while there's people getting away literally with murder,
Correct.
Crazy.
Correct, you are. So unfortunately, in my opinion, in order to bring real, true law and order back, and morals and decency, and a fear, because for me, God is first in my life, and I love him, but I fear him. He's the only one that I fear, and I get on my knees every day of my life praying to him out of fear and love and worship and reverence. And so there's an order to that. So I'm not saying fear authority, but have respect for authority, and not only authority, but your fellow man in your community. So the only way to do that and to bring those types of ideals back would be through corporal punishment. And so I would empty out the prisons. I'm telling you right now, I would empty out the prisons of all the murderers and the rapists and the pedophiles. They would no longer be on this planet. And if it was proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that these individuals were absolutely guilty of their crimes, they wouldn't be with us anymore. And so suddenly, if these types were faced with a consequence like that, if they do this, they're going to be facing that, and it is going to be very bad for them, then I would think that the crime rate would go whoosh, because they suddenly would be faced with the finalization that if they continue to commit these wicked and heinous crimes, something very wicked and heinous is going to await them before they leave this earth.
Yeah, don't worry about that, Bill. I've got a squad of guys ready to go. We'll man the wood chipper for the moment that comes on. This is a big kind of thing myself and the guys have always wanted to get to. But you're right. You are right. And
I'm sorry to say it, because look, I love everybody. I want everybody to do well and be happy. But these types of people, they are incorrigible. Yeah. And so you can't do anything. You can love them and talk to them all you want. It's not going to change. So so if the person's not going to change, and they're not willing to make any changes, well, then guess what? We as a society have to say enough is enough, and we're not going to have this in our society.
Yeah, big time. We need a change of the entire system. But when it comes to getting rid of them, I'm like you, and I have to emphasize it would have to be absolutely 110% proven. And again, even then, that's why we have to change the system, because it just takes one agent, one rogue in the chain of command, the chain of evidence, and you see how that system can be broken again so quickly. It's I tell you, they're very clever. That's one thing, Bill, about the elites, the bloodlines, whatever name people want to give the ones that run the planet. We must never ever forget that it's so genius if you look at it from their point of view. The whole system, the whole way the world is run, governed, it's all set up. It's loaded on their side against us, big time, from top to bottom.
Well, those types of people, Kev, see people like us, the normal, average, everyday person, as cattle.
Yep.
Goyim.
Goyim, yep.
And, so that means you're insignificant, you're nothing but a piece on a game board. So this is a big game to them and a big game board, and we're all pieces on it. It's their world, they think, and everybody's just a player in their world. Therefore, everyone is subject to them because they're the important ones and everybody else is garbage.
No, you're absolutely right. And folks, don't believe us. Go and look into these people. Charlie Robinson, who comes on my show, he's got a book with over 500 quotes from 300 of the characters that run the world and have been putting these systems in places. And that's in their own words, what they do, what they're into. Don't take me and Bill's word for it. We always encourage you to go and look for yourself. But Bill, let's get back to this, pardon the pun, clown, right? And then
I'm wrapping it up with this clown.
When you go with it, go for it, Bill.
Gacy is known to have murdered at least 33 young men and boys, 26 of whom were buried in the crawl space under his house. He typically abducted his victims from Chicago's Greyhound bus station. Now, that's interesting too, Kev, because as a child, I recall the adults around me always talking about the bad people and the pedophiles hanging in the bus stations.
Yep.
And so it's very interesting, and that certainly resonated with me, in reading that. Some of the victims were grabbed by force or conned into believing Gacy, who often carried a sheriff's badge and had spotlights on his black Oldsmobile, was a policeman. Other victims were lured to his house with either the promise of a job or offer of drink, drugs, money, or sex. The victims were usually lured alone to his house, and although on approximately 3 occasions, Gacy had what he called doubles, 2 murder victims killed at the same time, same evening. Inside of Gacy's home, his usual modus operandi was to ply a youth with drink and drugs or generally gain his trust. And Gacy then would produce a pair of handcuffs to show a magic trick. And sometimes, as part of the clowning routine, he typically cuffed his own hands behind his back and then released himself with the key, which he hid between his fingers. He then offered to show the victim how to perform the trick. And then, of course, once he had the victim in cuffs, he went on to do horrific things. So,
horrendous.
Yeah.
It's almost, I'm not going to get into the details of it, but it's either a classic case of multiple personalities or he was demonically possessed when he was doing that. And again, I'm not going to get graphic, folks, don't panic.
Yeah.
But that's one of the most harrowing accounts that I've had to listen to, And
another sick thing here, Kev.
Did he not make him dig the hole?
Yeah. And
made
another
him
thing,
dig his own grave,
And just think about that. Can you imagine the level of trauma going through a person's mind at that time?
Well, Bill, it's even worse than that, right? Because, again, he's a master manipulator, right? Because this guy that we're talking about, this instance here, he had moved to Chicago. He was waiting to move into a flat. Oh, Gacy, I've got a spare bedroom. Kind of said to him, you can get some board. I'll take some labor off you. I need a bit of the basement dug, and he was very specific what part he wanted dug. That's because he didn't want the guy to find all 26 other bodies that were in there at the time. And
there you go.
He was his friend all the way through, all the digging of it. He was doing work for him, winding him in, drawing him closer, and then, like you say, one night, it wasn't John Wayne Gayce that came in the door. It was Pog.
Now, think about what you just said. And I want everybody that's watching right now to just think about that. Take that in for a second. Now, where would Gacy get such tactics from? I'll tell you where. The devil. So anybody who thinks that they have a partnership or kinship to or with the devil, It's the same thing. The devil will string you along and make you feel like you're in partnership with him, and he will use you and abuse you. And then when the time comes, he will trash you and leave you in a grave or a heap just like that. So that's where Gacy got all these tactics from, willingly or unwillingly, knowingly, unknowingly. That's where he got it from. And it fits the perfect MO of the devil himself.
But there's a good ending to the story, despite how harrowing it was, because this dude fought back, and he managed to get away, and I believe he eventually went to the police, and because it was easy to kind of track down who it was, the guy had been looking for work. I believe he was a contractor, Gacy, at the time, and they went to Gacy, and he was that full of himself, that gallus, that kind of confident, that not only did he lie to the cops, obviously, denied it all, but he invited the lead investigators round to his house for dinner.
Amazing. I mean, is that bold or is that bold? And so this individual must have felt quite confident that he had enough powerful connections to where he could even invite the police over and not have to worry about anything. So he was that emboldened.
And it was during that dinner, I believe, that the cops picked up on the pungent smell coming out of the kind of ventilation. That guy was living there that much with that smell. He didn't even notice it. I can't even imagine, Bill.
I don't want to imagine, because I've smelled death before and it's a horrible smell. And so
you never lose. That's one of those smells you never lose. The minute you think about it, it's right back in your mind.
Yeah. And so can you imagine how deranged this individual must have been to be able to live in that day in and day out and not be affected by it?
Oh, mind-boggling. But they'd think it could even be more, because I think they got 27, I believe, in the basement, right? But there's some
I'm sure there was more.
Some reports say up to 33. And I know folks, people, there's that Mason number again. I'm just telling you how it is. It was a 33, they suspect. But to be honest, Bill, who only knows?
Even more than that, Kev.
Yeah, who only knows how many he left behind him. Now, these serial killers, for me, I think they fall into different categories. I think some are born, like you said earlier, absolutely, call it the wrong bloodline, whatever. Some become evil, whatever creates it. They turn out evil. Now, you sometimes get the alphabet agencies, in this case the CIA. Sometimes they're around, but sometimes they're not. And I don't think there's one kind of template that fits all serial killers. And I think they all have to be judged on a case-by-case value. But Bill, this one for me, I have to say it. For me, it's got the hallmarks and fingerprints of just evil from start to finish. The whole period chapter of that John Wayne Gayce life was just dark. It was just off.
From start to finish. Yep. And so on the morning of May 9th, 1994, Gacy was transferred from the Menard Correctional Center to Stateville Correctional Center in Crest Hill to be executed. That afternoon, he was allowed a private picnic on the prison grounds with his family. For his last meal, Gacy ordered a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken, a dozen fried shrimp, French fries, fresh strawberries, and a Diet Coke. That evening, he observed prayer with a Catholic priest before being escorted to the Stateville execution chamber to receive a lethal injection. So that's pretty much how it ended up for him.
He actually, his case, I believe, and again, it all makes me very suspicious because he got some of the best lawyers and attorneys that could possibly defend him. And even when he got sentenced to death, he congratulated them, because that's the outcome that he actually wanted. Very bizarre.
It's mind-boggling, Kev. It really is. So this is yet another individual that in the series of individuals that we have profiled and that will continue to profile that just boggles the mind, and yet has this same type of pattern and characteristics in many ways as the others.
And the mind boggles when you start to wonder just how many of these characters might be around today. Because
more and more,
unfortunately, yeah,
I hate to say, Kev.
Yeah, I think so as well, Bill. I really do. Everything seems to be increasing in intensity over the years, and well, why should that kind of thing be any different? So I wouldn't be surprised if it's off the charts. And I remember one documentary where they think one of the FBI analysis teams, whatever, they were talking about potentially up to 300 operating serial killers in the US at that time.
I believe it.
That's startling. Really.
There's another individual that we'll bring up in the coming weeks, that Henry Lee Lucas.
Oh, yeah.
He's another one that multiple people that individual killed, and so we'll be profiling him. I'm deep into that Kennedy book there by Colonel Fletcher Prouty. Very good book, and boy, I highly recommend it. And we'll do something about that on the show in the coming weeks as well.
I had Lee Harvey Oswald's ex-girlfriend on the show, Judith Fairy Baker, at one point. That was a big highlight of my show, so I look forward to getting back into that case. And really bizarre talking to such a friendly lady and calling him Lee, because we all know him as Lee Harvey Oswald, you know, all three names, but this was somebody that she literally knew. It was, it sticks in my mind, that one, Bill. In that case, I mean, who in the alternative media, the truth community, whatever name you want to put on it, who isn't interested in the most famous one of them all, you know? And that's
Correct.
why it sometimes might sound pessimistic. But when we hear people saying, yeah, we're going to get all the bad guys rounded up and we're going to get the truth about this, the truth about that, I have to remind people that we're still waiting for the official truth about what went down in Dealey Plaza back then. So
not going to get it.
Yeah, don't be holding your breath. No mass arrests coming tomorrow. None of that. But,
certainly not any of the current suspects on things. And people say to me from time to time, that George Soros, he needs to be behind bars. And I say, you will never see him behind bars. And they say, what do you mean? He's a criminal. He's an enemy against mankind. Well, that may all be true, but he is never going to be behind bars. He'll never see one day in jail. And do you know why? Because he's connected with all the right or wrong people. That same thing with Hillary Clinton and all these other people. They're never going to do a day in jail. And furthermore, all you have to do is a little digging, and you'll find that George Soros is a major investor in the Kushner Foundation and the Trump Foundation as well. So these people are connected. They're never going to do a day in jail, because if one goes, they're all going to go.
That's a far better motto than where we go one, we go all. Where one of them goes, they all go. I like that, Bill. I like it. But, brother, this has been yet another brilliant show. I'm going to hand it back to you now. You know I love to poke fun at that direction. It's just the way I am. But
just have to trust the plan.
I just have to trust the scam, more like, Bill. But I'm going to hand it to you, because I know one of the highlights for most people tuning in every week is the way that we can go from that darkness, and boy, was that dark, to uplifting people. And I know it's not you, Bill. You would never take credit for anything.
Nope.
But as the conduit, may I ask you to say some prayers before we go?
Let's do it. And this is always my favorite part of the show, because I always pray that God will work through me, and you as well, Kev, to be a blessing to others and to help them, to set them up for victory, because the week has started today. Most people don't realize that the first day of the week is Sunday. Not Monday, Sunday. So the week has started now. So I always love it where we can be in this position, God working through us to bring blessings and peace and empowerment to help you out there to start your week off well. And I want all of you just to relax now and think about whatever it is that you may have been going through this past week, and whatever challenges are currently in your life, and maybe some things that have been going on for a long time in your life that are obstacles and challenges. Whatever it may be, just let yourself go and bring it into mind now. Let's present it before God. And I'm going to pray. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is done in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forevermore. Glory, hallelujah. And Father, I ask that you please bless everyone out there. Everybody that might be having a problem right now or going through a bad time in their life. I ask that you bless them, Father, and help them and strengthen them in mind, body, and spirit. And even if they're going through some form of demonic attachment or oppression, or maybe some even having a possession type of situation, whatever it may be, Father, I ask that you deliver them from it and take it from them. I ask that you send your giant warrior angels to them and take any and every demon into custody and carry them off and deposit them back into the pits of hell where they belong. By your mighty power, Father, in your mighty and holy name, in Jesus' name, I bind and break the power over Satan and all of his demons, all his fallen angels, all of his unclean spirits, all of his demonic powers and principalities, and all of his curses, hexes, vexes, and spells, and demonic strongholds and attachments, and legal rights, and anything and everything that he has built over anybody out there that may be having trouble and problems right now. And by your mighty power, Father, in your mighty and holy name, in Jesus' name, I declare it broken off of them. And may you bless them, Father, with an abundance of love, peace, joy, good health, and prosperity for life. May peace be upon them, and may peace remain. And Father, I ask that you help them to get into this level of warrior mode, faith, strength, and courage, to where they have a shield in this hand and a sword in this hand. Bless their coming in and bless their going out, and make their enemies to flee from them in 7 different directions. Father, we give you the praise and the thanks and the glory forevermore in Jesus' name. Now I want everybody to take a deep breath in and exhale and push out really hard. And just let it all go. And may peace and blessing and favor be upon you. And if I can be of any assistance further than that, though I'm a very busy man, I'm never too busy to help someone. So if you're having a problem that feels insurmountable and you just can't seem to move forward in life, or you're just being tormented by demonic forces, don't hesitate to contact me, BillJBean.com. You can email me directly from the website, and we will get back to you very quickly. So, Kev, that's about it. So, boy, the show went by quick. The week will go by quick again before next week. And I just say much love and God bless all of you out there. May you have a wonderful week. And we certainly look forward to seeing you next week.
Oh, next week. Next week is going to be a massive show, ladies and gentlemen, because we have this lady here coming onto the show. Her name is Cheryl Jones, and she is the investigative reporter for Coast to Coast, no less. Yes, indeed. I am going to be setting up the link for this show in the next coming hours. I will drop it in Discord. I'll venture over to Facebook and I'll put it on there. Ugh, hate that website.
Yeah.
I'll go to the Twitterati and I'll share it over there as well. But me and Bill, we never ask you for anything. But this week, if I could just ask you for 10 seconds of your time to click the share on the link, and let's give Cheryl the audience that she really does deserve, and we'll give
Absolutely.
her the full warrior mode experience. Faith, strength, and courage. So, Bill, I'll let you take it out, and I'm still stoked that we're going to be speaking to Coast next week. It's like I'm literally talking to Coast. We're getting closer and closer, Bill, to Mr. Nuri himself.
No question about it. And sure, it'll be fantastic
Oh,
next week. And we look
absolutely.
forward to it. It'll be a great show. And again, thank you to everybody out there for hanging with us, for being a part of this. It's truly a blessing for me personally to be able to have some time set aside. And I never envisioned this. Kevin and I never planned to put this together. This just happened by the power of God. And I believe that it was God's direction that brought this together. And so I think I could speak for him as well in saying that it's a pleasure for both of us and a real blessing to be able to be with you each and every Sunday. And we'll continue to do that. And thank you to all for hanging with us and for being a part of it.
Absolutely. And I love getting together weekly with you, Bill. It was good once a
Yeah.
month. It was good, but it wasn't enough. And we still
No.
have our KBS once a month, but this warrior mode, it's faith, strength, courage. The podcast itself, it's just growing all the time. And I don't think that's any coincidence. So from me and from Bill, we'll see you all same time, same place next week.
And bye-bye, Pearl.
Yes.
Bye, Pearl, and bye, Pearl. I just thought about it. I couldn't go without.
I would have
mentioning
got,
hi to your
in
mom.
trouble. I would have got in trouble if you hadn't mentioned her, Bill.
Yeah.
But no, remember, folks, Cheryl Jones here on Warrior Mode, right here next week. And if you're looking for this show in the archive, maybe you tuned in late. That's okay. We've got you covered. I know people come to me and they say, "But Kev, we can't find it on your channel." Well, that's because we have got Bill Bean's YouTube channel, which is over here. Bill almost had a heart attack there. He's seen Geordie Rose on my YouTube channel. I'm only joking, Bill.
That'll be another show.
That would be a show and a half. This is Bill's YouTube here, and that is where all of the previous episodes of Warrior Mode and so much more is as well. You can get the full backstory on Bill's life, what led him to where he is today, the spiritual warrior. And there's a lot of inspiration to be taken from a lot of the videos that are over on Bill's site. So please check that out, give it a subscription. And yeah, same time, same place, next week, Warrior Mode. Right here, faith, strength, and courage. Good night, and God bless.